Maximize wealth by minimizing risk. A couple of years ago, 2018, I introduced you all to the Swan defined risk strategy. And if you're wondering what that noise is, that's old Finny the pup, the big baby, playing around with one of his bone chew toys. The reason about the Swan I like is because it has a hedging strategy where it buys put options against the S&P 500 to minimize the downside while it's still 100% fully invested in the S&P 500 to take advantage of the upside, if that makes sense. So it's a pure hedge, man, nothing fancy. And it's done well. And I said, well, let's take a look at what the Swan has done over the last, because I haven't talked about it in 3 years. It just kind of piqued my curiosity. Piqued is P-I-Q-U-E-D. Did you know that? The French guy. Swan defined risk. It was launched in 1997 to provide investors with a better way to invest over a full market cycle and generate consistent returns and mitigate risk for irreplaceable capital. All right, so we're going to go to their performance here over the last 1997. What they do is they direct innovative approach to market risk. First, and time-tested option strategy and invested for growth, but yet hedged for protection. All right. No reliance on market timing or stock selection. All right, so you put $100,000 in Swan, and in 2020, it's worth $601,000. So Swan is the blue, S&P 500 is the red, and the Barclays aggregate is the gray. So almost doubled that of the bond index. All right, and kept up pretty good with the S&P 500. In fact, it beat it up until this point right here in the last year. All right, so what we got here is we got some of the risk strategies here, the risk numbers. Standard deviation is about 9.25, which is roughly half. All right, so standard deviation is about half of that of the S&P 500. What's R squared? The percent correlation, I think, if my memory serves, of the S&P 500. So if the S&P 500 goes up 500, the S&P 500 itself goes up 500, so it's a 1 correlation. Not sure where they got 100 there. Is that supposed to be a? But anyway, it looks like the Swan's got 29% correlated. I think R square is the variance square root of the variance. I think that's what it is. I think R square is a square root of the variance, if memory serves. I don't pay that much mind to it, but S&P 500, the max drawdown was 50.95%, and that was from 2000 October 7 till March 2009. That could be. Whereas the Swan was 18%, so that's pretty good. The U.S. Barclays was only 3.8, so that's interesting. Anyway, so what we're going to show you here is we're going to show you the S&P 500 got, this is the red S&P 500. 2001 and 2 it got smoked, where Swan did well. Swan was up 3, 7.5. And 12, the S&P 500 is up, where Swan was. The S&P 500 is down, where Swan was up. 2008, S&P 500 was down at 50%, while Swan was down a total of 18%, which is similar to another fund we're going to show you in just a second. Oh boy. But you can see from 2009 on, the S&P 500 has beaten Swan every single time. So the last 10 years has been pretty ugly for Swan, and yet the interesting thing is, I guess it beat S&P 5. No, it did not. But yet, it's still, when all's factored in, it still kept its, because it didn't take those losses right here. Again, Swan's blue, S&P is red. It still kept up. In fact, it beat the S&P, other than those, because the last 2 years, basically, is when the S&P pulled ahead. Pretty interesting. All right, so let's keep going. Hey, you. So we're going to invest in equities. We're going to participate in the equity markets, invest in the low-cost S&P 500 ETF. Market cap weighting creates a growth tilt to the portfolio, but then we're going to mitigate risk. Always hedged by actively managing long-term put option leaps. Generally 1 to 2 years to expiration initially, and then purchase at or near the money puts. And then we might, I think they use, actively managing shorter term options portfolios. So they're going to seek additional return. I'm sure selling calls. All right. So that's pretty good. So what I want to do is I want to compare this because look at this, man. I'm sorry. We haven't had any bear market other than a tiny one that went 33 days in 2020. Q4 2018, we had 19.4%. That's not a bear. That was close, but not one. We had a correction in 2015, another correction in 2011. It's just not bear markets. We haven't had anything, but we've had some serious runs. That concerns me, not going to lie to you. So anyway, Let's compare this to Wellesley. I just thought it'd be interesting. So the drawback about this is if we go down, performance results are presented net of actual fees. Net of actual fees. However, actual fees may vary based on, among other things, the account size and your relationship with your broker, essentially, your financial advisor. So when I was working at a firm that used this, we charge, I think, 65 basis points on top of the Swan fee. All right, or maybe it was Swan charged 65, we charged 1. I can't remember. Either way, what you're seeing here was about half the fee that was totally charged to you as a client. So you got to keep that in mind, because that's a big deal, man. Who's I talked to? Somebody's interviewing one of those guys that you see on YouTube, which will go nameless. I think they're charging 1.5 on $1 million portfolio. So, dude, it's nuts. Anyway, so let's go to we'll compare it to Wellesley. Oh yeah, this is what started my whole reason for this, because I was reading my man Michael Edis's talk about the Barbell Strategy from a couple of years ago. He did a paper on that, which I enjoy, and he referenced Nassim Nicholas Taleb, who I like a lot. And these two guys, mathematicians, Don and Harriet G-Man, and I guess Harriet was Nicholas's advisor for his PhD. Anyway, tail risk constraints, and maximum entropy. I'm looking forward to reading that, and I'll share it with you. All right, so let's go back. We're going to look at Wellesley. We're going to go back to We're going to go to 1997 to 2000 is what we're going to do. We're going to go Wellesley. VWINX, that's the Wellesley 100. We're going to portfolio visualizer here. We're going to click on this guy. So the Swan was up to $600,000 net of their fee, but not net of all fees. And the Wellesley was up to, oops, I got to put $100,000 in there to keep it apples to apples. All right. Wellesley was up to 589. Hold on a second. You see, is the Wellesley is up to, what do you say, 589, and that's net of all fees. All right, that's the nice thing about mutual funds. It's all NAV, net asset value. Finnegan, Pablo's over there eating, and Finnegan's like, I want to check on it. But now that is through the whole year of 1997. So let's go back and reduce that. We can't go to the specific day, so we'll just start in 1998 instead, and we'll kind of split the difference. And I imagine it'll be less because 1997 was a good year. 589 to what? Yeah, 490. Wow, $100,000 difference. So basically, we'll say Wellesley 550, 540 or so. So Wellesley is at 540. The defined risk portfolio is at 600. So $60,000 difference. But we know Wellesley is net of fees, and we know the defined risk portfolio wasn't necessarily, if that makes sense. But it's still within spitting distance. Now, if we look at the Wellesley, the biggest draw, I think they give us drawdowns on here, actually. Max drawdown, 18.82. Isn't that interesting? And the defined risk max drawdown was 18.56. That's crazy. This portfolio visualizer is the best. All right, so roughly the same in terms of risk downside. And remember, Wellesley is heavy on the bonds, so about 60 to 65% bonds, 30 to 40%, 35 to 40% stocks, and then, so they're substituting bonds essentially for the puts that the defined risk is, and a lot cheaper as well. So anyway, does it give us total return? I don't know. Anyway, so we got 2018 was down 2.57, 2015 is up 1.28. I'm just curious. 2018, this was down. Yeah, it's almost identical, man. Look at that, 2015. So anyway, Wellesley is a good alternative because it doesn't have as much fees on it. It's going to be hard to beat, man. It's hard to beat Wellesley. So, and I don't want to compare it to Wellington because Wellington had that max drawdown. Well, sure, the max drawdown was like 37% in Wellington. No, VWELX. And then we'll look at Fidelity. Max drawdown 32%. Exactly. So So Wellington is up $600,000. No. Finnegan, $600,000 as of the middle of starting at 1998. If we start in 1997, it's going to be up even better. Probably, significantly better. Up to 7. Whoa, look at that. Finnegan, hold on a second. Come here. The difference there, Wellington was up 7 $75,000 more than the defined risk, and right about the same as the S&P 500 too, I might add. So, but the drawdown is 32%. See, that's kind of the risk there. Anyway, long story short, let's go to Fidelity Balance Fund, because Fidelity Balance FBA, does that go? That goes back, yeah. So let's go back to Fidelity, because Fidelity Balance. So Fidelity Balance Fund max drawdown almost 41%, and as of 1997, this was up. No, don't do it, Finnegan. Up to 852. Wow, so it did significantly better than Wellington, and significantly better than Wellesley. So let's take a look. So a lot more risk, though. But see, that's the thing. We're trying to hedge against the risk. We don't want that risk. Yeah, it got crunched at 31%. So actually, let's take a look at Fidelity Balanced. Hold on a second. All right, so here's a Fidelity Balanced. I can't remember how much it is stocks to bonds. Let's take a look here. Do we gotta go to portfolio? Hold it. One sec. Come here. Come here. Good boy. So it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds. So that's gonna be more aggressive than either Wellington or Wellesley. So it should do better for sure. Anyways, the point being is I think right now is the time you really got to rethink, if you're close to retirement, just protecting the downside. We've had such a run, man. Lock in some of those gains and protect that downside, because the one thing, we can't afford another 2007 and 2009. You just can't. And here's some alternatives to do it, man. I love Wellesley. I love Wellington. Right now, I think I like Wellesley, but more than I like Wellington, just because I do think we had such a serious run since March of last year. And you cannot convince me that the economy, and I was saying this when Trump is still in the office, so don't say it was because you don't like Trump. No, just there's no way these earnings are going to be justifying this huge run up that we've had. But I could be wrong. Either way, I'd rather be wrong and safe. I guess I'd rather be wrong and safe than right and get portfolios killed, if that makes sense. Something to think about. All right, we'll see you.